Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Hey Patrick. Welcome to the Brickyard series, everybody. I'm Andrea Thompson, and today we're introducing a new series called Intersectional Poetica. And this series allows us to go in depth with spoken word artists and focus on a diversity of topics. This month, we're starting out looking at mental health, and that's in honor of World Mental Health Day, which is on October 10th. And it is my absolute pleasure to be here chatting with Patrick de Belen. Hello.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Brickyard. Hello, world.
Hey, Patrick. So I have known Patrick for a long time. I was just saying before we hit record that I've known him from back in the day when he first started out as a young artist, and now he's a spoken word rock star. But I want to share a little bit from your bio to give people some background on you. So, Patrick de Belen is a Filipino-Canadian storyteller, arts educator, spoken word poet, writer, and director. He is most known for his collaborations with the Toronto Raptors, the NFL, CBC, and his three spoken word EPs and multiple cine-poems that he wrote and directed himself. He was the youngest poet to win a National Poetry Slam Championship, awarded both the National Poet of Honor and Youth Poet of Honor titles, and a few more storytelling accolades throughout his career, lots and lots. When he is not working or sharing, he's an educator and youth mentor, partnering with many institutions like addiction centers, mental health focused organizations, libraries, schools, jails, and more, advocating for storytelling opportunities in as many spaces as possible. Patrick is this is the part that I added, Patrick. Patrick is a devoted mental health advocate and a poetic force of nature. And I'm so happy to have the chance to chat with him today, to chat with you today, Patrick.
Thank you. I thought that was my short bio, but it's kind of long still, but it's fine. And thank you for that nice ending. That's actually, I'm going to include that from now on.
Yeah. Please feel
Sure.
free. Well, we want people to know what you've been up to. I think a lot of people who come to Brickyard are emerging artists, and I mean, I remember when you were new on the stage, and it's nice, I think, for people to see the possibilities of where you can go with the art form.
Yeah.
So let's just start at the beginning. How did you get into spoken word?
I've always been into writing, creatively. I think, and without format or form or limitation. So I think spoken word was kind of this weird thing I was doing for a while. But I think got me into writing was my dad. It was just like a cheap form of therapy, and in the neighborhood that I was living in, like real therapy wasn't a conversation that we had very often. So he was just kind of looking for a place for me to put things down. And so yeah, I quickly learned that like a blank piece of paper is the best friend you can ever have because all it does is listen and doesn't judge. So that's how I started writing. But then spoken word itself, specifically like that genre, I think it kind of like started materializing a bit more in high school. I had a spoken word artist, Jamal Versus, I think he's from New York or from the States. He came over and did a workshop in my school, and I wrote a poem, and I performed it at my talent show and got suspended. It was a whole story.
Wow,
But that was like at that point, I was like, this is spoken word. This is what I love to do.
that's awesome. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. I love
Mhm.
that. Suspended for a poem. The power of the word, eh?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. That's a whole like long fun. I tell that story in my keynotes, which is really fun because I do mostly my keynotes at schools, and I'll talk about how I was suspended for doing a poem, and I did about the education system, and just kind of talked about the student voice and things like that. And so yeah, that's a funny story, but that's the come up.
Okay, well, let me just give you a little plug then. So if there's any teachers watching this,
Yeah.
you got to go, Patrick, if you want to get the whole
Yeah,
story.
that's right. Yeah. That was just a sneak peek. If you want the whole keynote, go to www. I'm just joking. But yeah, but that's just it's a funny story because it kind of like is a testament to how I view it even today, and like 20 something years later. I don't even know how long ago that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking a little bit about mental health, and we're just kind of like checking in with each other about what are we going to talk about today? And
Mhm.
when I was first thinking about curating this series of spoken word artists around mental health, you were the first one who came to mind. So I know you've been active in mental health for a long time, and recently have had a tragedy in your own family that was like got you processing and writing about grief. So
Mhm.
I would love if you would care to share with us, like, how did you start as an artist? I mean, I know you brought the pen to the paper for yourself, but as an
Mhm.
advocate, and how's that journey been, from when you started to where you are now?
Mhm. Um, yeah, well, I mean, I've always been, as you said, like, um, an advocate for talking more about mental health, having programming like that, and kind of like its relationship with storytelling and writing and talking about that and promoting that in anywhere I am. And I think that just, again, that comes from why I started writing for myself. I think that's just important. I think that I started writing just because I needed a place to put things that weren't easy to talk about with my community and with my family. And so that's how it started for me. And when I started telling more people about my process and got invited to schools, I just think there were a lot of young people that gravitated towards it, in many different ways and just kind of, and more so than just the actual art form, but just I guess me as a person and my process and how I've used art to navigate those things in my life. I think a lot of young people were kind of like, oh, that's interesting and kind of like just curious and how they could use that for themselves. And so for like my a whole part of like like 10 years of my career has been me just traveling to different spaces, talking to different people about how storytelling helps my mental health and helps me and
Mm.
helping them and then like encouraging them to try it. When I lost Jordan in the pandemic, during the pandemic to suicide, it was like, I mean, it was so tragic, but I felt like that kind of loss in its like intensity and it was so like life changing and just I don't even know, just devastating
This is
that there
brother.
wasn't yeah, this is my little brother, yeah. And it was just so devastating that I feel like everything around me kind of just fell apart, And then so when I went to go reach for anything to kind of hold on to at that moment, just by muscle memory, it was writing, So like but it hasn't felt that way since like high school, because I feel like when you make a career out of writing, there's always this other element of it now where you have to like package it and sell it and but like I think for a long time in my career I kind of forgot about what got me into it in the first place and it was just literally having a place to put down what I felt and when Jordan died um that was like what I did and I wrote like multiple notebooks worth of things just like hundreds and hundreds of pages and scraps and like things that may never ever become some like packaged piece of art to deliver to people but I just the process of it of reflecting and talking it was almost like it was spiritual at moments it was like a seance like I was having conversations with him and just there was a lot of these like connection and needed coping that came from the pen and the page and so much like how it started for me I just was just writing and after it's been about a year and a half almost 2 years now um I think a lot of people started kind of I don't know, once again, kind of being like, that's kind of inspiring. I think I could try that for myself. And much like it was for me in high schools, now I'm getting a lot of people who have also experienced suicide in their families and grief, kind of listening to what I'm saying and being like, this is, I'm glad you're saying this. Like, no one says these things in this way and for whatever reason. And I can see them kind of like looking for that connection through my writing and that's just it's a blessing because it also makes me feel a lot less alone in what I'm feeling. But, it's a good reminder that art was always there to help me through all of this. And like, so it's weird. Like I feel like a long time it wasn't like that and it's like that now. So it's like, but yeah, obviously something that comes from something so devastating. So that's shitty. But yeah, I think art, much like before, was there for me. Storytelling, creative writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a full circle. Like you really rediscovered the, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like the life-saving power of this tool that we have to process things. Um,
Yes, absolutely. Life-saving tool.
there's something that you mentioned about I mean you're talking about process and you're talking about like just writing everything. And so I was wondering, like, how do you, what is your process? Like, I always got these double whammy questions, one, two.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I like those. I like them.
which you can, you know, pick and choose.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I'm wondering, like, what is your process? And part two, how do you give, and I'm thinking too for maybe somebody who's just picking up the pen for the first time or just exploring this tool, how do you give yourself permission?
Mm.
Just like put it all down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's such an interesting question. I think I like both of those questions,
Okay,
but
good, good.
I like that second one. So I'll answer it first before I forget what my answer will be. It's a
Okay.
funny thing, like permission. I feel like everywhere else in the world, I needed permission to act a certain way or be a certain way. But I feel like the page is actually probably the most non-judgmental place where there is no permission needed. I mean, from yourself, sure. But I think that remains the same regardless of what space you're in. So giving yourself permission, but literally it's just you and that page. There's no other living being around to judge whatever you're gonna write. Whereas most times I've like voiced my opinion or said something I've felt that feels kind of uncomfortable. I've had to kind of think, oh, do I have permission to say that here? Is it going to make someone uncomfortable? Is it going to make me uncomfortable? Like I feel like in out there out of away from the page like in the world, that's where those things I feel like I have to deal with more. But permission on the page, like nah, that's the only place like you don't have to ask that question, which is great. I think I think we need more spaces where that are like the page where you just don't need any permission. And it's funny because like in my workshops I talk again like about writing, and like I talk about how when like a teacher tells you to write something and it just says that, most students are just so programmed to ask like a million questions before they even know what they're going to write. Like, is it going to be marked?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
spelling count,
yeah.
like all those things.
Yeah.
Whereas like I was never like that as a kid. Like if a teacher said just gave me a piece of paper and just said write and that was the assignment, I could kill that shit. Like I could just whatever the fuck. Like that's awesome. So I think like I've done a good amount of work kind of unlearning a lot of the institutional like education things that have been imposed on me when it comes to creating art. So yeah, I don't feel like I need permission so much to create. Delivering it and sharing it with the world, then there's another whole story. But
Yeah.
making it like that's just fucking do it.
Yeah.
And then yeah, the process is very much that uh like I don't know, like I mean people say that quote's kind of cliche, that Ernest Hemingway quote or whatever, like go out, go up to the typewriter and bleed or whatever. But like I really do think like that's very much my process. Like I like things that really fucking hurt and things that just like there are so much intense, even like physical pain to like bring up is like the things I like writing about. And so
Yeah.
yeah, like the more gut wrenching for me, the better. And not because it's gut wrenching, but because the more my body feels like it's releasing something, and the more my mind feels like it's releasing something, and the less I could feel like I need permission for that
Mhm.
or whatever, the better I feel. So yeah, the process is like, oh, does this hurt or does it feel weird in there? How could I get this thing out? And so now it's on a piece of paper, and then sometimes it's good, sometimes it's really bad, but that's
Yes.
okay because
Yes.
that's the second part. That doesn't really
Yes.
matter. The
Yes.
fact that I did it is a win because now I have documentation that I'm gonna survive another day
Yeah.
because I wrote things down and yeah.
I love that. I love that. Like it's a win. Just putting pen to paper, it's a win.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think about like some of the when I'm working with young people and with myself too, like what are the kind of reservations or the things that kind of get in the way? And they will be ideas like, oh, my voice doesn't matter. My voice doesn't matter. And when I was kind of prepping for this chat with you, I found a piece that you have on voice, World Vision, Canada Vision, some vision, something Canada.
World Vision, yeah.
Yeah, and it was all about that, like that idea of your of our, you know, each individual voice mattering. I mean, it was in the context of voting, but the way that you said it was so universal, I felt,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah.
So can you speak to that? Like,
Yeah.
imagine I'm like a kid and you're gonna give me a pep talk, or I'm just me because I do need this pep talk sometimes.
I think we all need this pep talk. Like, I'm just gonna rewatch this and just watch my own face say this thing to my own face. Yeah, no, I don't. So, like, hmm, I think when I was younger, I got so caught up in like the amount of people that would listen to my things. I
Mm,
think
mm,
and like just measurable goals. And I think this is natural for
yeah,
any artist who's trying to survive, you know?
yeah.
Um, but I think in that process, um, I was reminded by this pastor I used to work with. I used to work in a church as a youth worker, doing like work in a church. I mean, like I'm a really terrible Christian. Like I'm not a real one. Like I'm like a, I don't know if I'm like a fake one, like a half one. I used
We all fall short of the glory of God,
You know what I
right? I
mean?
mean,
Yeah, hospital for sinners, not museum for
yes,
saints kind of deal, you
yeah.
know? Like that's kind of how I
Amen,
was
brother.
back in the day. But I used to do work in a building with a cross on it. And this pastor, he used to take me to conferences because he just loved how like I have this fiery kind of like passion for like the young voice and just like and he loves that as a pastor. He's one of those like kind of progressive renegade kind of pastors. But he would bring me to like places in the south of the states where not everyone had that like mindset. I think the 99% of them didn't have that mindset. And he would throw me into these events and being like, go do your thing. And I'd be like, 30 minutes, do some poems, talk about like how people's rights are important and how people's thoughts processes are like archaic. And so I used to do that and I would get a lot of audiences who would not feel my shit at all. And then I one time thought of quitting and because it was just a lot getting all this kind of like back and forth from the audience, like the heckling wasn't fun either. But towards the end of the conferences he would take me to, I'd get letters and emails from like a lot of these young people who are dealing with a lot of the same things I was dealing with, whether it was like mental health issues or just their own problems in their own places where they couldn't talk about those things.
Yeah,
And those like letters to me were like life-saving moments of like for me and like my career. And so
yeah.
yeah, I think they just reminded me, and I always think back to those moments when I think of like, oh, I can't even pay my rent, but I've got this letter, like this is not going to pay my rent, but this is going to keep me doing this because like, look at this person, like this person's telling you that this helped them, and can you believe it? If you were that person at that age and you heard an older version of you say this shit to you, wouldn't that be awesome? And so that's why it matters, for the one person who writes the letter or for the one person who needs that. Like, and maybe one day there's like thousands of people like that in one room. That'd be cool. But like, if there's one person, like, cool, I'm gonna give you the same kind of PDB, and yeah, so that's why the youth voice is important because there is other people like you who feel the same way you do and could be moved to make better choices in their lives and fight for something after listening to you.
Yeah, that is so good and so important in this age of social media where, you know, like metrics don't measure um that I was thinking about that with like because I've got an album coming out soon
Hmm.
and you wonder is like is anybody gonna care? And I'm like one person maybe I'm supposed to do this for one person, right? And if that's it, then that's it. And
Mm-hmm.
one
Mm-hmm.
one person is like poetry can save a life. You can, especially your stuff.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you.
speaking of which, you wanna drop a little song?
Sure. Yeah, yeah, sure. Okay, before this is a good part, you could edit this out. I'm gonna run and quickly get my charger. Of course, right? During the interview, Patrick's gonna get his charger. Not the time before, not the time after, but it's gonna be 1 minute, okay?
I don't think I'm going to edit this out, but I will pause. Oh, look at this puppy.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
I started it. I just paused it and started it up again, and I am not editing that out because we saw your puppy.
Sorry, I didn't catch that last thing. What did you say?
I said I'm not going to edit that out. I paused it
Okay.
now and started it up again, but I don't want to
Okay.
edit it out because when you got up, we saw you have a little sidekick. We saw you have like a
Oh,
little
did I
dog.
do the doggy reveal? Oh,
Gotta
I
show
did.
us the puppy. Let's see
Yeah,
who
yeah,
you
yeah.
got
Okay, I think
there.
you can see. There he
Oh my
is.
gosh. Oh
He's
my
sleep.
gosh.
He's sleeping behind me right
Look
now.
at his face.
He's sleeping
Oh
behind me.
no, that's adorable.
Yeah, yeah, we're inseparable and sometimes not in a good way, but it's okay for both of us. It's fine.
He's your muse. Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
let you have the floor and
Yeah, cool.
take it
I'll
away.
read this. So I'm gonna read this poem. It was a series of free writes I wrote after my brother died. A few of them, so like maybe one out of like 500, I would share on Instagram. And yeah, I think they're like really unedited and really like messy, which I really like about they were just like a one kind of train of thought that I had in probably the worst moments of my life. Like this is probably the worst days of my life that I've ever experienced. And I mean, I'm only 30, so but like, losing your little brother to suicide's like I don't know if there's anything that can happen that can top that, but it's
No,
probably one of the worst times. But like these are the kind of things that I was thinking of. And I look back on this poem like a year and a half later, and I'm like, who the fuck was this guy? How did he see the world like this? And so that's why writing's cool, because you can like go back and like reflect on how brave you were at some points of your life.
nice.
All right, cool. This one's called Fam Chat. And it doesn't
Mix it up.
rhyme. Dad still writes messages to you in the fam chat. I see so much bravery in this illusion. Casual life updates, how your kid is doing, while we sit in the ashes of this house fire. On the couch amidst the blackened walls, he tags you every time. Every notification slices my Achilles, and for all our sake, I hope he never stops. Remember, he was the first one that told us to write. How quickly we knew we needed a place where bleeding isn't weakness. And you were so good at it too, the bleeding part mostly, and how proud he was of that. How you did more than open up, but hemorrhage on demand. Then all dizzy and disoriented, colorful insides leaking past the margins, splattering on the kitchen cupboards, guts stuck on the ceiling like wet paper towels on our school bathroom wall, slowly peeling off and then dropping on the dinner plates. You stepped back from your creation and said, it's not perfect, but it's done. We wrote letters to you on an island, stuffed it in a bottle with a cigarette, threw it off the coast of a beach in Batangas. I think Dad would agree. It is the best thing we never wanted to write. In this dance with our demons, though, Mom is leading. Watching her hold your son reminds us all of the weight of a miracle. How many of us found beauty in the violently sudden growth of your angel wings, but only few knew the effort it took for Mary to finally walk away from the tomb. She speaks to you in a way we can't. You were once attached, and either way, regardless of that, she is a good mother, so she sends you messages in ancestral code, sound waves earned from lifetimes of incinerated plans, like birth certificates only ever on paper, gone forever in barangay office electric fires. She sings songs to your son while washing his clothes, folding and unfolding herself in a loop of second chances,
Mm.
surrounds him with the sound bites he'll need to rewrite his past and tell a story of becoming something more than just how you got here. And when she cries in the car after our first family meeting, outing, after watching all your titas, titos, your cousins hold her grandchild for the first time, I know for sure you would be proud of her, of how she can be so honest. In every moment of joy, you can always count on her to remind us that it is okay, that we will never be capable of forgetting. You are supposed to be here, to remind me, even when I try to hide it, that the only way I can laugh again is to be okay with it sounding exactly like yours. And me, I thought of a medium, but for some reason I still feel weird about it. Maybe it's my Catholic roots. I think it's because I don't want to bother you just for you to tell me I can't follow, or to tell us to keep living, or to tell us how beautiful it is there, or, to tell me you found peace, unless you're willing to provide specific instructions on how to find mine too. But I'm still doing my best though. I'm still so angry at every empty seat around me and how it fucking follows me everywhere, but I still talk to you every day. I'll be retelling all our stories. And one day I'll build a museum of you inside me. One where I remove the walls around your room, like that time dad took down my door, where I tidy up all the pieces like I did your old apartment, and then invite my nephew to roam freely, touch everything, and allow him to break things too, like a rite of passage, and help me put it back together. Mom and dad messaged me in the fam chat yesterday. We're outside. I came downstairs with your ate and the puppy I named after you, and Julian was in your seat, wearing checkered Vans that I bought him, and I saw a family.
Oh my gosh, that's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. I love
Thank
it.
you.
I love
Thanks.
it. I mean, it's such beautiful writing, but the raw is in there too, you know. I feel
Thank you.
really honored that you shared something so personal.
Thanks.
Have you read that to your parents?
Yeah, they were the first ones to see it. I would always share my stuff in my fam chat before I would
In the fam
release them
chat.
into
The
the
fam
world.
chat.
Yeah, the fam
Yes.
chat's where it all happens. So I shared it in the fam chat first, and then much like my all my like Facebook statuses and my stuff about grief, I kind of run it. I show my parents first, just because like I kind of we're all involved in the story in some way, and so I like to, and I do it for them, so as well as myself. So yeah, I shared it in the fam chat, but I just shared it on Instagram. I only read it one other time out loud, and it was in the CBC interview, and I was like bawling. Like I was
Wow.
could not even get through the poem, but
Oh
I
wow.
got through it. But it was great. And so I like it because it makes me feel like that. Like
Yeah.
not a lot of my poems when I'm reading them, I'm like, oh, I get like choked up because I can't finish it. So
Mm.
like I don't know, there's something interesting about that, like my body and the way that makes me feel. Usually just the museum part. That's the part that just shatters my soul, just because
Yeah.
I'm currently like filming a documentary about him and doing a bunch of these other kind of multimedia art pieces about him, like
Mm.
essentially creating this museum of like Jordan for his brother, for his little son. And like,
Um,
it's been a very emotional experience doing all that.
I
So it's
love
funny
that.
how like 3 months like after he died, that's what I was thinking, crazy.
Yeah, no, I love that line. It's really struck me too, that making the museum of you. Um, yeah, that was a gorgeous piece. And
Thanks.
thank you again for sharing it with us. I'm so excited too, because we're going to get to feature more of your work. We've got like a little set of
Hmm.
poems that you filmed beautifully because you're a director. And we got nice sound, nice background there.
I didn't want to overproduce it, but I was like, I
No, it
could
was
throw
nice.
up a
It was
little
perfect.
backdrop. Yeah, okay, cool.
It's perfect. Yeah. And casual too, and real. It was something people who are not here in real time that we were talking about is how, I was saying to Patrick, don't worry, I'm awkward. It'll be a casual interview because I don't know how to be smooth. And I think people respond to that, like people right now. I think, we are in the midst of our mental health pandemic. Like right now, it's going down, and people are hungry for real and hungry for people who are willing to be real in places that they can be real. And I think your work is providing that to people. So I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad that we
Thank
get
you.
to.
That's a huge compliment. Thank you. And yes, excited for your album as well. Can't wait
Hey,
to bump
hey,
that.
thank
Yes,
you.
yes. And you're right, metrics don't matter. Like I think the fact that you're still pumping out an album, regardless of what it would do in the world is the bravest thing. I think that like if you're a famous artist and they pay you millions and millions of dollars to make albums, it's still brave, but like you're getting millions of dollars to do. You know what I mean? Like I think that like I put out these albums just because they make me feel good, and like
Yeah.
they're the poems that I really like. And so yeah, I'm really excited for yours too.
Oh, thanks. It's mine is like faith and Black history intersecting. So it's like there's going to be some people who this is going to be. what they've been waiting for, you know?
Yes,
That's why we do
yes.
it. That's why we do
No,
it.
yes. Oh my gosh. Like one of my favorite poets, Jubilee or Sheila Jubilee. She was a member of Band Youth Slam. She writes a lot about her experience in the church, and I love it. It's just like so like necessary and such a perfect medium to talk about a lot of those things, you know?
Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Okay.
thank you. This is so great. So we're filming this in September, but I think it's going to be airing on World Mental Health Day. So this is perfect timing. So again, this is Patrick de Belen, double N.
Hmm.
Double N, Patrick double N, Spanish flavor. You can find
Hmm.
more about him at patrickdebelen.com.
Hmm.
And that link will be below. And there is going to be more mental health related content coming out from Brickyard all month. So look past into the past. I think we're going to start on October 3rd, maybe not, but definitely all through October. This is a part of our Intersectional Poetica program. We're going to be doing stuff for Black History Month, Asian Heritage Month, Indigenous History Month. Um, so you can find more about the program at the Genesis creator of Brickyard, which is BrickBooks at brickbooks.ca. And I'm going to give a serious plug to please like, share, and subscribe. And not like everybody says, please like, share, and subscribe, but
Hmm.
for reals, because what
Hmm.
we're doing here is creating an archive of amazing spoken word artists. And we're also moving towards monetization for Brickyard so we can make some money and share the profits with the artists. So cha-ching, something happens from your likes and your shares and subscribe. So do it, do it, do it.
Do it. We're broke. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Not everyone, but you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Until this goes viral. We're
Yeah, until for now, we're
on the
broke for
cusp
now.
of very big things, very big things.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us and watching the Brickyard interview series. I'm Andrea Thompson, and until next time, and and what's your puppy's name? We got to know.
Jordy.
Jordy.
That is
Thank
Jordy.
you.
Yeah. Hmm.
Awesome. Thank you,
Peace.
Patrick.
Thank you.
Peace out,
Bye.
everybody. Thanks for joining us.